First of all, what does it mean to you all to be recognized for songwriting?
I always thought I was a songwriter, and certainly was a better songwriter than a guitar player. And, you know, we lived or died on the strength of our songs. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
So this is a huge honor, you know, to be noticed for something that it is what I do. You know?
Yeah. It's so interesting how many artists, musicians think of themselves first as songwriters. I mean, is that true for all of you?
You know, for me, it is the hardest part. I mean, literally, almost anyone can pick up a guitar or play a piano or do those things to one degree or another.
Yeah.
But not anyone can write a good song.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing that we do. And it's the thing that we've worked on the most from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
I think we're pretty proud of it.
Because we had to.
Yeah, well,
I mean, really, early on,
Yeah.
just to put food on the table, we had to write songs as fast as we could.
Yeah.
Go out and tour them into little places.
What made you want to be songwriters?
The Beatles.
Really?
That was, when I was 7, I heard that, and it was like, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Meet the Beatles.
Yeah.
Punk rock.
Punk rock. Yeah.
you can't play covers all night long.
No.
And
Some people, a lot of people do.
Well, and that's great. I mean, I've done it, but once we realized we could, it was like the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Once we realized that we could actually sit down and create these things,
Yeah.
then we could play them for people and lift everybody up. It was magic.
Yeah.
And so writing songs was the key to doing the things we wanted to do, which was play music and make people dance.
Yeah. Peter?
We had a bunch of songs when we first started, and they weren't great.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months in, all of a sudden, these songs started appearing, you know, Radio for Europe and Sitting Still and
Yeah.
Gardening at Night, and it was all in the space of about 3 or 4 weeks. And all of a sudden, it just felt like, wow, we actually have an identity now. We're not
Yeah.
just this band that does this kind of song or that kind of song. We have a group identity.
What was that identity?
It was the 4 of us doing, you know, we're all unique players and singers.
Yeah.
These guys are better technically than I'll ever be, but we all have our own styles that are, no one else sounded like
You
us.
still have the best right hand in the business.
This is true.
The
this-
arpeggio, man.
and the songs we were writing,
Yeah.
we realized it didn't really sound like anybody else. You know, some of our earlier songs that we wrote, you know, you could kind of trace the lineage of where we got it from. But with
Yeah.
these new ones, we were like, okay, these are our songs. They sound like nobody but us.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going.
Yeah. How would you describe that sound? What did you hear?
That's not for me to say.
Somebody once said that every band member was soloing from beginning to end of each song.
Yeah.
I think we all did everyone did the wrong things.
Well,
And it kind of worked.
Well, Peter's arpeggiated guitar playing
Yes.
leaves a lot of room for me
Yeah.
to have fun with the bass because I'm not going to sit there and play the root all night long.
Yeah.
So Peter's creating melody by playing the arpeggios. I'm creating melody on the bass. Bill is the most orchestral drummer I know. So he's not just bashing drums back there. He's creating a drum part that fits that song.
Yeah.
And Michael, of course, is one of the best melodicists in the world. So we just have all this melody going on and all this self-identity going on, and that's what made us, one thing that made us special.
Yeah.
I've never been called a melodicist before.
I'm not even sure that's a word.
I kind of like it.
I think I made it up.
I guess it has to have been accidental, essentially. I mean, you wouldn't have known that this was going to work.
It felt like kismet to me.
It did.
When it happened, it felt right.
Yeah.
But the first songs that we wrote really were not very good. But then it all kind of, as Peter said, it all kind of happened. And then we were like, oh, wow, we can really actually do this.
I remember the very first practice. Bill and I had some stuff left over from our band in Macon, and we showed it to Peter and Michael, and they took it to places, even that very first night, that I didn't expect. And I was thrilled. I said, okay, I love what these guys are doing with what Bill and I have been bashing around for the last year and a half, and they just took it to brand new places, and we said, okay, this works for me.
When you start writing songs, you guys are not long. How old were you at that time? I mean,
I was 19 when the
Right.
band started.
early 20s.
21.
Was there a direction in mind, or were you just trying anything?
Our intention, I think, from the very beginning was not to be categorized. And there were a number of different, in 1979, 1980, there were all these different, you could be new wave, you could be punk, you could be kind of not quite hardcore. We didn't want to be categorized as any of those things. So we worked really hard not to have categorization.
works.
Nice
Someone,
escape.
someone finish. Yeah, someone finish my sentence for me, please.
Like you've talked in the past, I know, about wanting to write songs that appeared to not come from any particular time. Which, I mean, can you do that by design?
It was not just the writing of songs, but the recording of the record,
Yeah.
the sounds you use, the instruments you use. We didn't use the hot keyboards of the day, and writing songs. Yeah, I mean, because we were lucky enough to find that when we wrote songs, they had our identity. As I said, they stopped sounding like us trying to write other people's songs,
Right.
and they started to sound like our songs. And that in itself, when you've got as many disparate influences as the four of us have, you end up with something that is kind of timeless because you can't really pin down where any of it comes from. And the same thing goes to the records. You listen to a record from 1983 and it could have been made 2 years ago.
Right. Among the many reasons you are distinctive, all four of you write, which is pretty unusual for a band.
We're lucky.
That's the way it should be. I'm either a total communist or a Democrat or something, but my feeling was all of this is writing, you know?
Yeah.
Chord changes, melodies, bass lines, drum parts.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine working in a group where then you sit down and argue about who did what and who gets owed what. I just don't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, second best decision we ever made was when Peter said we're going to split the songwriting 4 ways.
What was
Yeah.
the first?
Getting Birds Downs to be our advisor.
Here, here.
Both of those are wise decisions. But it works in your case because all of you are involved in this music. Not, I mean, obviously not equally in every song, but you've all had a role in the songwriting, which I can't think of many bands that's true of.
It's true.
When we first started, it was just for me an idea. It was like a teenage dream.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me that I would have to actually like write lyrics and perform. I mean, it just felt like, well, that'd be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I really set out to do it. And then we were doing it, and then it was like, uh-oh, this actually requires some modicum of talent. Not sure that's in there, but you know, we dug deep and it finally appeared.
I mean, I know every song comes in a different pathway, but I mean, was there a process? No.
I mean, you know, some of them we just make up at sound checks. One of us will bring in chords or ideas, you know.
Some of them take as long to write as they do to play.
Yeah.
You know, Peter would come in with an idea, and within 5 minutes we'd have a song, or sometimes we'd have to work on it for weeks before we ever got it where we wanted it.
What is?
Or years. Lyrics are not easy.
No.
And the more I wanted them to be great and for there to be something there for everyone, the harder they got.
Yeah. I mean, you've said you're not an autobiographical songwriter.
No, I'm not. No. I try to fictionalize, at least if I'm pulling from real life. It's never autobiographic.
I would think in some ways that made the songwriting process harder.
I'm not a reader. These guys are the readers. So I guess I'm an observer, maybe more than anything else. I look a lot and pay attention and then put it together and create stories.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with you yesterday from years ago.
Uh-oh.
You said, I just encourage the public, don't confuse the singer with the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was always true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we gave you so many songs.
Yeah.
It's like,
These guys are really prolific.
Well, think about what he had to write 10 to 12 songs per record.
Yeah.
And it was a record a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of words and stories to try to tell. I'm glad it was
Not
his
to mention
job and
the
not-
songs that never made the cut
Yeah.
that he wrote lyrics to.
Sometimes if you're forced to write, it's better. Sometimes it's not.
It's a thin line, and no one knows it better than the three gentlemen flanking me to my left and right. Pressure is a good thing.
Yeah.
Too much pressure, it's like a shutdown.
Yeah.
It wasn't always up to me, you know. We were all really involved in the final thing, and these guys were great and very supportive of my struggles with writing lyrics.
Yeah.
And they were great editors. So
You guys were remarkably prolific. A lot of bands really struggled for periods of time to come up with material, and sometimes that deadline or the pressure of another album just shut people down. But it doesn't seem to have happened to you.
Well, we were lucky in the sense that we loved the craft of songwriting so much that, I mean, I couldn't walk past a guitar or piano without pick up the guitar, not the piano, and try to play it.
Yeah.
You know, Peter was always playing the guitar,
Yeah.
always, all day long, every day. And
Yeah.
when you do that and you've got some sort of talent and inspiration in there, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And we also realized early on that this was important to us. Having great songs was the thing that was going to make this fun for us and make
Yeah.
it work for us. So that was just something we worked on all day, every day while we were younger and together in the same town, in the same house.
And we tried really hard not to repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
We tried to do something and then move on and challenge ourselves, and we challenged ourselves over and over and over again
Yeah.
with each record.
I'm curious what songwriting means to each of you personally. What has it given you?
Something to do at 3 in the morning when I can't sleep. I mean, it's just an obsession I've had that's not necessarily always healthy.
Yeah,
And it's ongoing. And,
yeah,
you know, I'll be sitting in my pajamas at 3 in the morning going, is there anyone on earth who cares if I finish this song?
yes,
The answer is, I guess me. No one else.
yeah,
And it's just an obsession. I'm assuming at some point it'll kind of quit. But
yeah. Obviously, if you keep doing it, it has to give you something in some way.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. But, you know, for me, the memory is always the first time we play it together, or hearing the record come back at you, or just the rehearsal where it all comes together.
Yeah,
That kind of means more to me than the struggling, trying to put chord A after chord B. And,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
It's like building a puzzle, completing a puzzle. Because
Yeah.
okay, I've got this and this is good, but what's the piece that I need that's going to make it right and make it
Yeah.
whole? And when you come up with that, it's just very satisfying. And to look back on it as a finished product and go, wow, that's very cool.
emotionally, personally, is it important to you in any way in terms of what it allows you to process?
I mean, as mediums go, music is incredibly, profoundly emotional and goes straight to the heart. I wish I was a really good actor. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I know that all actors wish that they could write songs,
Yeah.
and they can't.
Yeah.
But that's what they really want. So there's a sense of ownership and a pride about that when you have written something and you know that it's not just good, but possibly great.
Yeah,
That's a really great feeling.
yeah. But you don't always recognize that at first, do you?
No, hell no.
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 How long does it take to see it? Or do you have to see it through other people's eyes?
Usually sitting in a room with someone who hasn't heard it, and you feel the vibe, you feel the energy, you know, you know where it needs to change or be changed,
Yeah,
or if it's perfect.
yeah,
When we made records all through the 80s, I would always take the cassette of the final mix, and I would go to my favorite bar in Atlanta, and we'd shut the thing down, and I'd play it for my friends.
Yeah.
And that was when, out of the context of the studio and out of the context of being with these guys, I could kind of hear it through someone else's ears.
Yeah.
And that's when I would go like, holy cow, this is a great record. You didn't always know until it had some different context. And then it just blew me away to do that. It was so much fun because they'd all be thinking, wow, that's amazing. And I go, you know, you're right. It actually is.
yeah.
The other thing about R.E.M. though is that we didn't always write music or songs that people connected with on the first listen. Sometimes
yes.
it took 7 or 8 or even 10 listens before
Yeah.
the melodies sunk in. You wake up singing it the next day, and then you know you've got something.
Yeah, that is true. What does that say, do you think?
We're very complicated, intelligent people.
It means they'll last. I mean, so many songs, you love them on the first listen, then after 4 or 5, you're like, okay, that's enough of that.
I know. But those are always my favorite on albums in the end, is the ones you discover that take you a while to really discover, because you'd listen to the whole album and you'd kind of be like, well, I've heard the songs I really like, but I'm going to leave this on because it takes energy to lift the needle. And then after a while, that's the song that sticks with you for reasons you don't really understand.
And that's a gratifying part of songwriting, is when
Yeah.
you can write a song. First of all, that people would have the patience to listen to them
Yeah.
multiple times. That's kind of amazing. But
Yeah.
but the fact that you can write something that actually stands up to repeated listenings and scrutiny and actually gets better
Yeah.
as it goes along is very satisfying.
Yeah.
Also, talk about Peter or Bill, what it is to put together an album.
You know, you start off with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, I've got 30 pieces of music and no lyrics, and what are we doing? And, you know, that's the hardest part, is when does it start being incoherent and start telling you what it is?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you want the record to flow from song 1 to the very last.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, I don't even know what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens on every record I've ever been on.
I was always relieved when we got to the sequencing stage.
Yeah.
That's a little work. I mean, it's kind of not easy.
Yeah.
But it meant the songs were done.
There's the obligation of songwriting that comes with an album that you have to put out. And I mean, was obligation a good thing or a bad thing?
Obligation to each other.
Obligation to write, to create. You have to come up with songs, right? You know, you're sitting there, the label's waiting for another record, and
Peter Buck's waiting for another record.
Sorry, guys.
were you the taskmaster?
Yeah. Not because I wanted to, but
Yeah,
it's certainly not like I could get these guys to do anything they didn't want to do. It was just, I'm kind of let's just do it and let's get it done.
yeah,
And there'll be something in between, and at the end it'll be finished, and then we go on to the next thing.
yeah,
Yeah, somebody's got to drive the train, and we were all more than happy to have Peter be sort of our motivator in terms of
Well-
okay, it's time to write these songs, get the next record going.
More than happy may not be the phrase that I would use.
Looking
Accepting.
back, let's say there's a body of work that wouldn't be there had you not been pushing us as hard as you did.
yeah,
That's when you realize, wow, this is really quite something that we did, quite an
Yeah.
accomplishment.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a hell of a body of work. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you dive into it. I don't know how often you guys go back and listen to it.
Zero.
Zero?
Occasionally.
We've heard them.
I don't listen to the radio. I don't watch TV.
Yeah,
A friend of mine texted me and said, "Oh, this song is the favorite song you guys ever did," and I went, "I don't even remember what song that is."
Yeah.
So I had to go to YouTube and look it up. It was on our last record, and I went, "Oh, yeah, that is a good song."
yeah,
But it's kind of like, once I do it, it's gone.
yeah. For you, it's over.
The minute we okay the final mix, it's just over.
Yeah. Why is that?
Got somewhere else to go? I don't know.
More songs to write.
More songs to write. So you don't sit there and celebrate them necessarily. Well, you have to perform them. You have to perform them. So
And you do celebrate them. I mean, you're aware that while you feel great about accomplishing that, you've still got the next one to do at some
Yeah,
point.
yes.
But yeah, you have to give yourself perspective and enjoy what you've done. But you can't just sit there and go, wow, we're great because we finished that. Because there is pressure from within. We gave ourselves a lot of this pressure to do the next record, to write the next bunch of songs and have them be great.
yeah, yeah, that's great. But what are you going to do now?
Yeah. And we sort of preempted any record company or anything like that from giving us pressure. We just put it on ourselves. And
Yeah.
so anything they said or did was nothing compared to the self-motivation that we had to get out and do this.
How did you guys do under that pressure? I mean, it seems like you did pretty well.
Fortunately, writing songs was something we loved to do, at least musically speaking. I mean, we loved getting together and making noise and seeing what came out of it.
Yeah.
Or showing each other. I'd come in with a part I was very excited about, and I'd show it to Peter and Bill, and Peter'd go, okay, here's the chorus. And we'd like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
It was just the thrill of working together and creating these little pieces of whatever they are that was so satisfying.
Right.
We're also here to tell the tale, and we're sitting at the same table together with
Yeah.
deep admiration and lifelong friendship. A lot of people that do this can't
Yeah.
claim that, and so that's kind of great.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you can all sit at this table when so many bands can't together?
Ego and lawyers.
Not ours.
Theirs. Yeah.
I think we quit at the right time.
Yeah.
I think that we all saw that the end of the road was there, and
Yeah.
that it was becoming this circular thing that we were going to do it every, and I think we all just kind of came to this conclusion that this is a really good place to finish. Great tour, great album, go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Any second thoughts about that? Anybody ever?
Nope.
Nope.
Never.
Nope.
Pretty happy.
Yeah. Bill, did you ever have any second thoughts about walking away?
Of course I did.
You did. You okay?
Yeah. That was a weird time for me.
I bet.
And I made it weird for these guys too.
No, I didn't.
No, it wasn't weird. We respected your decision 100%.
Yeah, because we're all sitting here friends again.
Yeah.
Still.
But it was hard.
I was going through a tough time.
Yeah. Well, you had some major health issues that you had to deal with.
Yeah. I'm not going to use that as an excuse.
You're not.
No.
What would you attribute it to?
Maybe it reduced, maybe that thing in Switzerland,
Yeah.
brain aneurysm and successful surgery, it may have lowered my energy level.
Yeah.
I was type A, hyperactive until that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the drive I once did
Yeah.
to do this.
So you knew you had to give it up.
Yes. And I didn't regret it at the time. I sort of regretted it a little later.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. That was over a quarter of a century ago.
But obviously it's still emotional on a certain level.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm close to these guys, and I was close to what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, you did some amazing stuff. You did. I want to talk about a couple of songs. You guys mentioned, Radio Free Europe was your first single. It was obviously not the first song you wrote, but from what it sounds like, that's kind of one of the point where you started knowing what you actually sounded like?
It was one of the first 4 or 5 songs that we just felt like, oh yeah, this is who we are. At least this is who we are right now, that we had a individual identity. And like I said, Radio Free Europe, Sitting Still, Gardening at Night, Romance, which never ended up on a real record. But all these songs were just kind of coming out, and all of a sudden it felt like...
Pretty Persuasion.
Pretty Persuasion. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it seemed like our set started to sound like, wow, a real band would do these songs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's got to be pretty much of a thrill.
We kind of grew up in public. We didn't really know what we were doing. Mike and Bill are really great musicians. Peter and I are not.
Yeah.
And so we were learning all together how to do this thing. But there was a moment where it was like, wow, we don't sound like the people that we came into the room as fans of, the people that were big influences on us, each individually different and a lot of overlap. We suddenly started to sound like something very different.
Yeah.
And that very different became R.E.M.
So we pretty much always started with music that you guys would bring to Michael. Did you ever write a lyric first?
Yeah,
you did.
It never worked.
It never worked.
No, they never wanted to. It never turned out that the lyric was the motivation for a song being written around it.
Right.
But that's probably partly my fault as well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that made us stand out, I think, was the fact that when the 3 of us wrote a song, it had to be interesting on its own, without lyrics or singing vocal melody. We had to enjoy it and enjoy playing it, and it stood alone already.
Yeah.
And so when you add Michael to it, it took it to the stratosphere. So that was, I think, one thing that gave us a leg up on a lot of other bands in terms of songwriting.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember these guys came up with an idea for a song during a sound check, and it was, and I had written a letter that month, and I heard this cadence while they were playing it. I was on stage, and I was like, wait a minute, I think I've got something for this. And I went into my dressing room, came back with the letter, and it became Evo the Letter.
Yeah.
But it was all there. I don't have the original letter. I have a scan of the original letter. The lyric is exactly as it's sung in the song. It's just wild that
It came straight from the letter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I picked two sentences and repeated them, and that became the chorus.
Yeah. Some songs came remarkably quickly to you. Losing My Religion was one of those, right?
Not for me, but
No.
No,
That was Peter.
I kind of had brought it in on mandolin, and within an hour we were playing it exactly like the record.
it took me a little while to come up with the bass line.
Yeah, but you were doing perfectly well the second time through. And then Michael had lyrics like the second day. Exactly like the record.
Yeah.
And then I think we only played it once in the studio. I was like, yeah, we know that.
Yeah. You were just messing around with the mandolin. You just started playing?
Yeah, and I still don't play mandolin. I just had one there, and I don't. Every time I do a session, someone goes, "Oh, bring a mandolin." I'm like, I don't play a mandolin. You could throw a rock and find a mandolin player that's better than I am. But I just happen to write it on mandolin.
Yeah. So fun. Where did you pull that lyric from so quickly?
No idea.
No idea.
I remember originally it was "That's Me in the Kitchen," not the spotlight.
Yeah.
And then of course turned the spotlight onto me, the singer. And that's where the singer, don't confuse the singer with the song.
Yeah.
But
And the title came from something your grandmother
losing my
used to
religion. I lost my religion as a Southern phrase,
Yeah.
and I torqued it slightly for the title.
say. Yeah. You all didn't really think that much of that song, did you?
I love the song, but we never thought it was going to be a hit.
Yeah.
It should not. It's like a bumblebee. They shouldn't be able to fly, and that song should have been a hit.
But boy, did it fly. So, when something like that happens to a song, how do you react to that? What do you make of it? Because you guys created that thing that took off.
No, I kind of went, well, about time. I mean, you know, we made a lot of really good records, and then just randomly we had a hit single off this thing with a lead mandolin. I was like, God, go figure.
Yeah, yeah. You can't design it, can you? No. When you look back on songwriting and the whole process and all the success you had, what do you make of that process? Do you think you figured it out? Is it any easier now than it would have been 25 years ago, or is it still just the same?
I think everything gets harder as you get older.
Do you?
Well, you've done it. You know, it's like, how do you avoid repeating yourself?
Right.
And that becomes kind of high up on the list of what you're thinking when you're writing a song. It's like, oh, shoot, I've already done that.
Yeah.
I wrote a great song once, and I was like, man, this is really cool. And I was like, wait, it's Freebird.
Yeah.
Okay, can't write that one. So.
Is that part of the why you guys disbanded? There's just nowhere else to go?
One of many. There were so many reasons why that was the right
I
time.
think the main reason was that at that point there wasn't anything we could agree on really musically.
Right.
What kind of music, how to record it, are we going to go on tour? You know, it's like we could barely agree on where to go to dinner.
Yeah.
And now we could just agree on where to go to dinner and don't have to worry about the whole, you know, we work in very different ways.
I can't believe I'm going to quote the Byrds, but to everything turn, there's a season. Our season, you know, the time it had become the time for us to encapsulate our legacy, to be able to look at it and say, that's what we did. We didn't drive it into the ground. We did it. We can walk away from it and remain friends and look back on it and go, wow, we did this beautiful thing.
As you say, you don't really listen to your stuff a lot. Have you ever sort of looked at as a body of work and said, well, look at this, you know, because it's pretty impressive.
It's so self-indulgent to do that. I mean, none of us are really quite that self-indulgent.
Okay, I am.
Not to that. Like, so when we re-releasing these 25-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, it's a legitimate time to listen to the record again and think about it.
Songs get stuck in my head, though, and the only way to exercise that is to listen to them. And these songs, because we wrote them, are part of our DNA. It's like you pick up, even if Peter forgot a song off of one record, the second he hears it, he's like, oh yeah, I remember a part of that, right?
Yeah.
So the only way to exercise it is to listen to it.
Yeah.
And then I wind up on YouTube, and I watch some live performance. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we did that. Like we did things.
I know.
And we did it really well from time to time.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
That is pretty cool to look back on.
It means a lot to people. And you know, I was going to say earlier, music is a great medium, but what you really want as someone who creates things is to respond to the moment, to respond to the present, and to somehow elevate or lift not just yourself, but the people around you in some way.
Yeah.
And our job as songwriters was to kind of intuit or feel where we were in that moment, and then translate it into music.
Yeah.
And when we did that and it hit, it really hit.
I mean, you know this, people take an ownership of them and they become incredibly personal.
Well, it's like Peter said, once we finish the record, it's not ours anymore. It belongs to everybody else.
Yeah. But it is yours.
It is, but it's not just ours.
Yeah.
Now, yes, of course, it'll always be ours, but now it belongs to whoever likes it, whoever wants to listen to it and like it.
I got to ask the question that everybody's going to ask me if I asked, which you know is coming, which is, what would it take to get you guys back together one more time?
A comet.
Super glue.
Super glue? It ain't happening, is what you're saying. No. Why is that?
It'd never be as good.
That's why.
I mean, it never is. You know, I go see all the bands that have been touring for a million years, and you know, we had our time and we did it as well as we could. I don't think I have any interest in going back and celebrating our past or, you know, I just don't know what I'd be trying to accomplish if we got back together.
Yeah. You don't think that there might come a moment where you just want to get together and play all those songs one last time somewhere?
But then what have you done?
Yeah, there's no one last time.
Yeah, because what if we got together, just the four of us goofing off and played a song? Oh, great, let's do this again. It's like all the reasons you don't want to do it are still in place.
Yeah.
It'll, like Peter said, it'll never be as good. We are lucky enough to have don't really love the word, a legacy that we can leave in place and not mess up.
Yeah.
And you don't get that opportunity but one time. And
Yeah.
once you change that, you can't go back.
Yeah.
I remember when the Velvet Underground came back together after decades apart. and toured. And I, as a fan, I was invited, but I didn't want to see it. You know, I was like, I want to remember it the way, what it meant to me as a teenager and as a young adult. I don't really want to see their version of it now.
Yeah.
I now, of course, completely regret not going to see them. But it would have, it kind of maybe would have been its own thing. It would have been quite amazing. But
yeah. So there's no check big enough. There's no.
No, I mean we did it. We had our day in the sun, and we grabbed it.
Ran with it.
And ran with it. Yeah. We celebrated Peter's birthday a couple years ago, and over dinner, after several glasses of wine, a guitar came out, and we all performed a little version of one of our favorite songs together.
Yeah.
And it was really nice, you know. But it was a private dinner.
But that's about as close to as a reunion as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a nice moment.
It was. Very good food, too.
If you were working in the studio trying to write something, how would that work?
Somebody brings something in.
I would do something like this.
Yeah, somebody would bring in an idea and show it to the rest of us, and then we just start messing with it. Sometimes we would literally just start playing without any plan at all.
Yeah.
Just everybody play what they felt like playing, and sometimes it would morph into a song.
Yeah. Was that typically productive? I mean, did that?
No, it's not. It's not a very efficient way to write songs. But sometimes when you don't have any ideas, you just like throw it all in the pot and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did that work? I mean, it did work sometimes, though, didn't
There
it?
were a couple of times when we'd come up with a song. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you think of an example?
Me and Honey.
Yeah.
That's how.
Well, me and Honey I was sitting here playing that bass riff, and you were sitting. It was one of the few times you were at rehearsal, and you were sitting right there, and I was playing that little riff, and you're like, "Keep playing that, keep." I was like, "It's really hard. Keep playing it." So I kept playing it, and you like in the time it takes to play it, you wrote the song. I said, "Okay, it needs one more chord," so we added the fifth, and it was done.
Yeah.
Like the fastest song we ever wrote.
I would often hang out in the front room.
Yeah.
Because the sound is muffled through
Yeah.
there. So it's like your neighbor's playing some music, and you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
When I liked it, I was like, oh, there's something there. There's something in that thing. And that's easier than being in the room with the amps and with everything sometimes.
Yeah. So you're kind of eavesdropping.
I'm eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that allows you to sort of filter everything. That's interesting. God, I've never heard anybody do that before in the songwriting process.
Well, then if I had an idea, I'd come in here and sing it, and on the mic, and these guys would hear it, and they would then maybe play off of that a little bit. Or
It sounds like once you came up with a sound in that early group of songs you were talking about, you became relatively convinced in your ability as songwriters, or did that take a while?
No, we knew pretty quickly. I'd say we knew within a year. Well, I knew right away, like I said, at our very first rehearsal, I loved what Peter and Michael did with the songs that Bill and I had.
Yeah.
So I knew something good was going on. That didn't mean we could write good songs, but the foundation was there.
Yeah.
And then pretty quickly, like we said, once we started hitting things like Gardening at Night and all that, we said, we can legitimately write some songs here.
Yeah.
as soon as we got good at something, we would push ourselves to not repeat ourselves. So we would try to really push the limitations of our abilities. And that turned into a bunch of different sounding records with a lot of different kind of material.
Yeah. Were you aiming for anything in the beginning?
World domination.
We're in a band. We write songs.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it just becomes part of your daily routine. Mm-hmm. And when we were here, we came in 5 days a week and rehearsed, and at some point we'd have a body of work that seemed like it was a record.
Yeah.
We're all music fans. So to write something that would excite other people like ourselves, maybe if there was a goal, it was something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is how you structured the process, if in fact you structured it. It sounds like there was some kind of structure to it.
You had to show up.
You would show up.
We'd all show up at 1 o'clock and bring in any ideas that we had.
Yeah.
And see if it inspired anybody else to do something with it.
Yeah.
And that was it. And like I said, sometimes we had no ideas and we would just, not jam, but we would just make noise. And sometimes something would emerge from that. But it was only structured in the sense that we had to be here at 1 o'clock.
That can run off the rails pretty easily. I mean, it does in most bands, I think.
Well, we didn't push it. If we showed up and we played, like Peter said, if we played for 45 minutes and nothing was happening, we'd like, okay, let's not beat our brains out.
Yeah.
Come back tomorrow.
I remember when, I guess, Drive came out, as a single, and so I guess it's kind of wild that you have this song that doesn't have a chorus as your first single.
Yeah.
I kind of went, yeah, I guess it didn't really have a chorus, did it? It just felt like a complete piece of music.
Yeah.
So it was really intuitive,
So how did you know when it was a song in the room?
but it felt right.
You just know.
really.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed playing it and listening to it,
Yeah.
then it was a song.
Yeah.
If you hated it, out the window.
And you trust your own immediate judgment, pretty much.
Who else? I mean, it was
don't
just
know.
us. So, yeah, we did. And that, like I said, when we started writing what we considered real songs, it was pretty clear that we had an idea about what was going to work and what wasn't.
Yeah. I was looking at a quote from, I guess, what turned out to be Kurt Cobain's last interview. And I know you guys were friends with him, but I mean, he was incredibly flattering to you all and said something to the effect, I wish I could do what those guys do. I don't know how they do it. What does it mean when you hear something like that?
I wish we could tell him how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, but we just did it. It wasn't. Everyone thinks it's this calculated plan of here's how you know, like Squeeze, fantastic band, but they had a rule where they had to write a song every day, one song every day, and out of that they came up with a ton of great songs. We didn't have that sort of. We didn't want that sort of discipline. We didn't want this to be a job, even though we were very serious about doing it. We didn't want to make it onerous and put even more pressure on ourselves by having to do this in a certain order and a certain structure. We just wanted to have fun, and the more you relax, really, the more you relax, the more you're going to come up with good stuff anyway.
Did you write mostly in here?
Starting in '86.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the very end, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we'd put everything together and put it in its final shape. So yeah, this has been the place.
Before that, it was Mike's living room, right, on Barber Street.
And that's where I remember we wrote Little America in that front room.
A lot of that record.
A lot of that second record was done there. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one, I can't remember what it was. It was one album you wrote almost entirely on the road, I think. That's the way you described it. Maybe it was...
That was, yeah.
New Adventure.
Yeah, New Adventures, right?
Yeah, we went on the road with nothing and just sound checked. And
Yeah.
by the end of the tour, we were playing 8 songs, I think, and then finished the rest up. I think I was just trying to push us in a direction that was like, this is different from what we've done before. Let's put some pressure on ourselves.
I mean, you talked about, I think in a couple of the interviews I read, the sort of adrenalized state you're in, obviously, on a tour.
Yeah.
I mean, does that accelerate the songwriting process? Does it help it or not?
It was really hard for me to focus when we were on tour. I gave everything to the performance, and you know, my body was my instrument, and so it took a beating. I didn't have the headspace really to write songs. But what would happen and did happen with New Adventures in Hi-Fi is that I got ideas.
Yeah.
And maybe I'd just get a little bit of an idea, but that was enough to then, after the tour, I could go back and finish it. And it took a lot. It took a lot of focus, and sometimes that focus was about not focusing.
It's such a peculiar state, being on tour. I mean, it's so unnatural, but I don't know if it's conducive to creativity or not.
I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, the song "Belong" happened in a hotel room. The song "Departure" happened after a flight from Singapore to San Sebastian. There were a lot of things that did happen on tour, as Peter said.
Do you remember where most songs have come from?
I do.
You do?
Some, not all.
Yeah. Because in your cases, there's sounds, I mean, that come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's not even really particularly cathartic. I'm just putting together pieces of the puzzle to bring in to show to everyone else.
Yeah.
Sometimes I remember really well when I come up with something, and sometimes I don't even remember having been involved in the song. So.
That must be a pretty weird feeling.
It is. I'll hear something on the radio.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds kind of familiar. Oh yeah, that's me.
What does that feel like?
It makes me feel a little on the stupid side, And I was with somebody once, and something came on the car radio, and it was something I played on. And she's going, "Oh, that's you." And that's not me. She's like, "That's you." I said, "That's not me." And I asked the guy whose record it was. He goes, "Yeah, that was you.
Yeah.
You played that, all the guitars like that." And I was like, "I don't have any memory of doing that at all." I mean, gosh, for every one that we record, there's 5 that we don't.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's so much.
a lot of stuff. And then you're kind of going, did I do this? Or has this been used before? Do we end up making a record of that? I don't really remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd listen to old demos sometimes when we were trying to get the extra content for the reissues we were doing, and
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't remember that demo at all. Did I write that? Did you write that? Who played guitar on that? And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know because you weren't thinking that hard about it. You were just writing it, recording it, getting it ready to maybe give to Michael, maybe not, and all the circumstances around it just get lost.
Were you guys pretty good archivists of the stuff that you made and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
But I
huge.
mean, we never, speaking of the Beatles, we never had camera crews in the rehearsal space while we were actually composing music. I mean,
Right.
that is the best way to just shut it down really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're more interested in the work than our presentation on TV or in the movie theater of the work.
Did you ever figure out a way to sort of create the most ideal environment to make music? Was that just here?
Well, we love this place. We were very comfortable here.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's the attitude you walk in with. I think.
Is it?
Yeah, this is a safe place. You can't hear anything we're doing from the outside.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
Years ago, there used to be a air conditioner right here. Remember the
Yeah.
window unit?
Yeah.
And it kept this room nice and cool, but it made that room like a furnace for all the gear.
When you say there's an attitude you walk in with, what is that attitude, do you think?
Positive, be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
a lot of good work got done in here.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun in here. We created a lot of great pieces of music, and we knew it for a lot of them.
It looks pretty much the same as when I was here like 12 or 13 years ago.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't.
Why mess with perfection? Come on.